Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Jessica Wongso? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, consider supporting me on Patreon, and check out my podcast on YouTube, Grande Media. I will put the relevant links for those items in the description for this video. So first I'll look at the background of this case. It's brief. I'll move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. 27-year-old Jessica Wongso was friends with a woman named Wayan Myrna Salihin, who apparently went by Myrna. Both were originally from Indonesia. They had both studied design at a college in Sydney, Australia. Jessica became a permanent resident of Australia, and Myrna returned to Indonesia. Eventually, Jessica would return to Indonesia as well, after being fired from her job in Australia. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. Jessica arrived at the Grande Indonesia shopping mall in Jakarta, Indonesia, on January 6, 2016 at 2 p.m. She was planning on meeting Myrna and another one of her friends. Jessica made a reservation at a cafe and arrived at that cafe at 3:32 p.m. Jessica then went shopping at the mall, buying 3 bottles of liquid soap, which she carried in 3 large paper gift bags. So the bags were large, but the bottles of soap were quite small. She returned to the cafe at about 4 p.m. and ordered drinks, including a Vietnamese iced coffee. She had texted her friends and insisted that she buy their drinks in advance. The drinks arrived at 4:24 p.m. Myrna and the other friend arrived at about 5:16 p.m. Myrna had a sip of coffee. She complained that the coffee tasted horrible. Then she lost consciousness. She was taken to a hospital and died at 6 p.m. Jessica was charged with murder. The police said that she poisoned the coffee with cyanide. They claim that cyanide was found in the victim's stomach and in the coffee. Here's the prosecution's theory of the crime. Jessica arranged the meeting with 2 of her friends. She arrived early at the cafe so she could select the table based on the location of the security cameras. She can be seen looking around as if she was trying to figure out where the cameras were located. She left to go shopping. Of course, she got the soap and the bags. She returned to the cafe and ordered the drinks. The drinks were delivered to the table. Using the bags to obscure the view of the only camera that could get a shot at where she was sitting, Jessica put cyanide in Myrna's drink. Her 2 friends arrive. Myrna drank the coffee and, of course, died. Jessica had medical training, but she did not intervene. Instead, she watched as others tried to revive her friend. There were 2 motives for the crime. Jessica wanted revenge after Myrna had suggested Jessica break up with her Australian boyfriend, and Jessica was jealous that Myrna had a happy marriage. The trial of Jessica was extremely popular in Indonesia. It had been called the trial of the century. Every minute of it was broadcast live in the country. Jessica was found guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. At the time making this video, she has unsuccessfully appealed her conviction 3 times. The last time was in 2019. Now moving to my analysis. Was Jessica really guilty? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory evidence. The victim died after drinking coffee that Jessica ordered. In the surveillance footage, Jessica's bags appear to block the view of the drinks. She was doing something behind the bags, although it may have been texting, but either way there was activity. Perhaps she was putting cyanide in the drink. The court found that the soap was a very inappropriate gift for a meeting between student friends. I'm not sure this is really inculpatory, but it is what the court believed. So an unusual conclusion, maybe one they just put together to support the decision that they already made, but either way, that's something that they said. The staff at the cafe explained that they served straws alongside the drinks and not in them. They would remove all but the top part of the wrapper from the straw. This was for hygiene reasons. Staff members testified that the remaining wrapper had been removed and the straw was in the victim's coffee prior to the victim's arrival. Jessica had control over Myrna's drink for about 51 minutes, giving her ample opportunity to poison it. Jessica contacted Myrna's sister, Sandy, on the day that Myrna died and asked what the results were for the laboratory tests. Jessica also sent a link to Sandy to a news story about fake coffee containing cyanide being sold in Vietnam. After Myrna arrived and took a sip of the coffee, it appears as though she asked Jessica and the other friend to taste it, probably because it tasted so bad. Jessica declined the offer to taste the coffee. After Myrna collapsed, Jessica did not render aid. The court would find that her general agitation indicated she was guilty. I don't know about the general agitation part, but the not rendering aid seems suspicious. Jessica asked the cafe manager, "What did you put in the drink?" It's interesting because at that point, nobody had suspected the drink was a problem. The court found that during the trial, Jessica had faked her tears. She was pretending to be emotional, but not actually shedding tears. Jessica used to work for an ambulance service in Australia. Her former boss, Christy Carter, testified that Jessica was two-faced, manipulative, untruthful, hateful, crazy, and bad-tempered. So I'm guessing that no employee of the Year Award was heading Jessica's way. Christy said that Jessica was capable of killing someone, like what happened in Jakarta, and she was not surprised of Jessica's involvement. Christy also talked about how Jessica had tried to end her own life with carbon monoxide from a barbecue. When visiting Jessica in the hospital, Jessica told Christy that the staff of the hospital were treating her like a killer. Jessica said that if she wanted to kill somebody, she certainly knew how to do it. She would get a gun and know the right dosage. I feel as though she's getting her murder weapons confused here. Typically, people do not refer to a number of cartridges as a dosage. Like, how many times was that person shot? Well, about 90 milligrams. Christy said that Jessica tried to kill her and her mother for refusing to help Jessica find a place to live. In addition to the one attempt on her own life to which Christy referred, Jessica had 4 other attempts in the same year. One included crashing a car into a retirement community. Now moving to the exculpatory evidence. The police did not investigate any suspect other than Jessica. There was a plausible alternative theory of the crime that was never looked at. Some people believe that Myrna's husband may have been responsible. He may have wanted to collect her $5 million life insurance policy. The theory here is that he paid off one of the baristas to poison his wife's coffee. This particular barista dumped out the hot water that was in the kettle used to make Myrna's coffee. A self-described journalist claimed to have seen Myrna's husband giving a package to that barista the day before Myrna's death. No autopsy was ever performed on the victim's body. The prosecution was not actually sure that the victim ingested poison, let alone cyanide. The cause of death was never officially determined, but an expert stated that the victim's mouth was blackened and her intestines were corroded, both consistent with cyanide poisoning. No cyanide was found in the victim's liver, bile, gastric fluid, or urine. A small trace was detected in her stomach. This was days after her death. The cyanide could have been from the chemicals used to embalm her body. The cyanide poisoning theory was really based on what was found in the victim's coffee. But there's a problem here as well. The way the police handled collecting and moving the evidence created a situation where someone from the cafe could have added cyanide after the fact. No cyanide was found on Jessica's clothing or in her residence, although it's worth noting the police did not search her immediately. She actually did ask a housekeeper to dispose of her pants, saying that she ripped them going to the hospital. 24 witnesses testified at the trial. None of them saw Jessica put anything in the victim's drink, and it wasn't captured on security cameras either. As far as Jessica's statements to Christy Carter, like talking about a gun and a dosage, those statements really don't seem to be about killing someone else, rather more like what she would do to herself. The last item here can be thought of as both inculpatory or exculpatory. After Myrna collapsed, Jessica's other friend and cafe staff tasted the coffee. They said it tasted bad and they felt sick, but they did not collapse or die. I think this is really more inculpatory, but it was used by the defense. They argued that the two people should have died as well if there was really cyanide in the drink. My thinking is they took a very small sip as they were concerned for their safety. There were some other problems in this case as well that have more to do with the denial of due process. Here are a few examples. Jessica was denied access to her attorney. The police admitted that they asked the attorney to leave the room to prevent him from influencing Jessica. Jessica made a few claims about what happened during her interview with the police. She said that she was involuntarily hypnotized. The police commissioner tried to force a confession out of her, and she was threatened with the death penalty if she did not admit to the murder. She was told that she would only spend 7 years in prison if she confessed. The police deny these claims. The police illegally searched the house of Jessica's parents. The police forced Jessica to participate in a reconstruction of the crime, which seems to be a transparent ploy to get her to incriminate herself. She was forced to participate in another reconstruction during her trial. The whole scene was staged based on the prosecution's theory of events. So here you're putting the defendant in a reconstruction that follows the prosecution's theory. It makes her look guilty. An outside observer would look at that and probably be influenced. In Indonesia, the standard for guilt is that the judges have to be convinced that somebody committed the crime. The standard is not reasonable doubt, and there is no jury. Jessica was convicted, as I mentioned, but was she really guilty? In terms of actual guilt, like in reality, I think that Jessica did it. She appeared to have difficulty regulating her emotions. She insisted on ordering those drinks, and she seemed to have an unusual interest in what was in the coffee after Myrna collapsed. Now, as far as reasonable doubt, if that was the standard that was applied, I think she would not be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I think the same is true of the being convinced standard. Jessica's conviction was largely based on her character. The cause of death of the victim was never established. There were no witnesses to the poisoning, and no cyanide was found on Jessica or in her residence. This brings me to the mental health factors. A mental health clinician testified that people would not usually place bags on a table when the seat beside them was vacant. I agree that putting bags on a table was unusual, but I'm not sure a mental health clinician is required to make that determination, and I'm not sure it's a significant determination. Jessica's character was portrayed in a negative light. She was described as being strangely calm after Myrna collapsed. Her time in Australia featured erratic, emotionally reactive, deceptive, destructive, and manipulative behavior. There was this idea that she was fake crying during the trial, as I mentioned. This is another case where the emotions of the defendant are connected to guilt, even though there is no scientific reason to believe that. I do, however, think there were mental health and personality factors that indicated guilt in this case. Not necessarily strongly pointing toward it, but factors that didn't look too good for Jessica. For example, she threatened Christy and Christy's mother. She was disrespectful to people during the court proceedings, and she seemed very happy when she was arrested and during her trial. Almost like maybe she was narcissistic. Getting the attention was so fulfilling that she forgot that she could have faced a firing squad, where, no doubt, she would have received a lethal dose of bullets. Moving on from the mental health factors, there is a political side to this trial as well. Jessica and Myrna were both from the upper class in Indonesia. They were buying $4 drinks in a country where most of the population earns only $4 a day. Looking at how the population felt about Jessica's guilt during the trial, the upper class citizens overwhelmingly thought she was innocent, whereas the remainder of the population thought she was guilty. I think there may have been something satisfying for people to see two wealthy families in such a position. I think this case exposes many of the flaws in the Indonesian criminal justice system. I do think Jessica was guilty, but it was probably a case where the right result was obtained in the worst possible way. Those are my thoughts on the case of Jessica Wongso. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.